The Interstellar Academy of Xenocultural Studies floated high above the rings of Zeta Prime, a shimmering dome of glass and light where students from over 200 worlds came to learn, share, and grow. It was a place of peace, knowledge, and unity, on paper at least. In practice, like any school, it had its cliques, its rumors, and its quiet judgments. Among the newest group of exchange students were three who stood out, not because they were loud, but because they were confident, sharp-tongued, and sure of their place in the galaxy. Kale came from the Virelian homeworld, a planet of crystal forests and silent cities. His skin shimmered like pale quartz and his eyes held the calm of deep space. Zintra was from Glorva, a water-rich moon where her people lived in coral towers beneath violet seas. Her smooth blue-green skin glistened under the Academy's soft lights, and she moved with the grace of ocean currents. Rovak was Myrathi, a tall, slender being with silver eyes that never blinked. His species spoke not with words but with thoughts, though he had learned to use a voice modulator to fit in. They sat together in the central cafeteria, a vast dome with floating tables and gravity-adjusted chairs. Around them, beings of all shapes and sizes ate, chatted, or simply rested after long classes on interspecies ethics or cosmic linguistics. The air hummed with a dozen languages translated instantly by the Academy's ambient AI. Then someone mentioned Earth. "Did you hear?" said a feathered student from the avian cluster, voice hushed. "The humans aren't coming this term." Kyle looked up from his nutrient cube. "Again?" "Not just again," the avian replied. "They banned themselves, said they weren't ready." A ripple of amusement passed through the table. Zintra let out a soft, bubbling laugh. "Of course they did. They're always not ready." Last time one of them cried during the empathy simulation. Another tried to hug a Zillion ambassador, nearly caused a diplomatic incident. Rovak's voice modulator clicked on, flat and dry. "Their emotional systems are unstable. Like a star about to go supernova, beautiful but dangerous." Kale nodded. "I read their history files. They spent centuries fighting over lines on maps, then nearly destroyed their own atmosphere. And now they want to sit at the galactic table? They don't even understand basic nonverbal cues," Zintra added, swirling her algae broth. "Remember the Qatari incident? A human delegate offered a handshake, a friendly gesture on Earth. But to the Qatari, open palms mean surrender in war. The Qatari thought Earth was declaring defeat. Total chaos." The group laughed again, louder this time. Others nearby joined in. Humans had become a kind of joke at the Academy, a cautionary tale of what happened when intelligence outpaced wisdom. They were clever, yes. They'd built ships, cured diseases, even reached the stars. But they were messy, loud, unpredictable, always feeling too much or too little. They call themselves Homo sapiens, wise man, Kale said, smirking. "If that's wisdom, I'd hate to see their foolishness," Zintra leaned in. "My cousin served on a peacekeeping mission near their system. She said their cities are full of noise, music blaring, voices shouting, machines roaring. No harmony. No stillness, just chaos." Rovak tilted his head slightly. "Chaos is inefficient. It wastes energy. My people solved emotion-based conflict 10,000 cycles ago by linking minds directly. No lies, no misunderstandings." "Humans lie to themselves," Kyle said. "They say they want peace, then build bigger weapons. They say they love their children, then poison the air they breathe. It's illogical." Their laughter grew, echoing off the curved walls. A few students glanced over, some smiling, others rolling their eyes. The humans had been absent for 2 terms now, and each time the gossip grew louder, the jokes sharper. Unseen, near a service hatch by the dessert dispenser, Dr. Alara Vance stood quietly. She was human. Tall, with dark skin, tired eyes, and a simple gray uniform marked with Earth's blue and green emblem. She wasn't supposed to be in the cafeteria during student hours, but she'd come to test a new translation patch for the Academy's network. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but she heard every word. Her hands tightened around her datapad. She didn't flinch. She didn't storm over. She simply stood there listening as beings who had never set foot on Earth mocked her people as if they were children who'd spilled their milk. She knew the truth was more complicated. Yes, humans had made terrible mistakes. Yes, they were emotional, impulsive, sometimes cruel. But they were also the species that sent messages of peace into the void before they even knew if anyone was listening. The ones who risked their lives to save strangers in floods, fires, and wars. the ones who painted stars on cave walls long before they understood what stars were. But none of that mattered right now. Right now she was just another human, absent, judged, and laughed at. She turned quietly and walked away, her boots making no sound on the soft floor. Behind her, the laughter continued. Kale raised his cup. To Earth, the galaxy's most dramatic toddler. To Earth, Zintra echoed, clinking her shell cup against his. Rovak didn't toast. He simply stared into the middle distance, already composing a note for his next philosophy essay. Why emotional species fail in cosmic society. None of them noticed Dr. Vance leave. None of them knew she had just uploaded a file to the Academy's secure archive. None of them suspected that in a few days, everything they thought they knew about humans would be turned upside down. For now, they were content in their certainty. The humans were gone. The galaxy was safer. And the joke was on Earth. But certainty, like all things in the universe, is fragile. And sometimes all it takes to shatter it is a single video file, and the courage to press play. A few days after the laughter in the cafeteria, Dr. Alara Vance requested a meeting with the student council. The council met in a quiet chamber deep inside the academy, where the walls glowed with soft blue light and the air smelled faintly of ozone and calm. 5 student representatives sat in a circle, Kale, Zintra, Rovak, and 2 others from distant star systems. They had been chosen for their wisdom, their grades, and their ability to speak for their peers. Dr. Vance stood before them, calm and straight-backed. She wore the same gray uniform, but today it looked sharper, more serious. She did not smile. She did not fidget. She simply waited until the room was silent. "You called this meeting," Kale said, his voice cool. "Why?" Dr. Vance took a slow breath. "I heard what you said in the cafeteria." The room grew still. Zintra looked down at her hands. Rovak's silver eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm not here to argue," Dr. Vance continued. "I'm here to explain." She walked to the center of the room and tapped her datapad. A small holoscreen appeared in the air, showing the official seal of Earth's Global Council. "Earth did not get banned by the Academy," she said clearly. "We chose to stay away. That surprised them." Kale leaned forward. "Why would you do that?" "Because we made a mistake," Dr. Vance said. "A big one. During first contact with the Qatari, one of our diplomats used a gesture that meant friendship on Earth, but to the Qatari, it meant surrender in war. They thought we were mocking them." Tensions rose. Ships were moved. Words were exchanged that shouldn't have been. She paused. Instead of making things worse, Earth's leaders decided to step back. Not because we were weak, but because we didn't want to risk peace over pride. Zintra frowned. "So you ran away?" "No," Dr. Vance said gently. "We waited. We listened. We studied. We asked the Qatari what we did wrong, and we apologized, not with excuses, but with honesty." Rovak's voice modulator clicked on. "Apologies are emotional. They do not fix logic errors." "Maybe not," Dr. Vance said, "but they fix trust. And trust is the first step to understanding." The students exchanged glances. They had expected anger, defensiveness, but Dr. Vance showed neither. She spoke like someone who had carried a heavy truth for a long time and was finally setting it down. "Your people laugh at us," she said, not accusingly, but sadly. "You call us chaotic, unstable, childish, and yes, we are messy. We feel too much. We make mistakes. But we also try again and again to be better." She looked at each of them in turn. "Before you judge us, watch what we really are." With that, she tapped her pad again. A file appeared on the council's shared screen. It was labeled, "Project Terra, Verified Footage 2023-2047. "What is this?" Kale asked. "Real moments," Dr. Vance said. "No edits, no music, no speeches. Just humans doing what humans do when no one is watching." She turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. "Watch it," she said softly. "Not as students. Not as aliens, just as beings who want to understand." Then she was gone. For a long moment, no one spoke. The file hovered in the air like a question. "She's trying to trick us," Zintra muttered. "It's probably propaganda." "Maybe," Kale said. But his voice lacked its usual certainty. "Still, we should look." Rovak said nothing. His mind was already racing ahead, analyzing possibilities. Was this a test, a plea, or something else? That night, long after lights out, Kale returned to the council chamber alone. He sat in the dark and opened the file. The first clip showed a city on fire. Smoke filled the sky. People ran through the streets coughing, crying. But then, amid the chaos, a group of strangers formed a human chain to pull an elderly woman from a collapsed building. Their hands were burned. Their faces were black with soot. But they didn't stop until she was safe. Cale blinked. He had seen disaster footage before, but always with rescue teams in uniforms with clear orders. Here, there were no uniforms, just people helping people. He clicked to the next clip. A flooded village, water up to people's waists. A man in a small boat paddled from house to house, pulling children onto his roof. When his boat tipped, he held a baby above the water with one hand while clinging to a tree with the other. He stayed like that for hours. Cale's chest felt tight. On his world, survival was a personal duty. You saved yourself or you didn't survive. The idea of risking your life for a stranger, especially a baby you'd never met, was almost unthinkable. He watched another clip. A hospital, overcrowded and dark. A young doctor, eyes red from lack of sleep, held the hand of a dying patient. The patient wasn't family, not even from the same country. But the doctor stayed until the last breath. Kyle closed the file. His hands were shaking. He sent a message to Zintra and Rovak. Come to the council chamber now. When they arrived, he didn't speak. He just played the footage. Zintra watched a clip of a teenage girl in a hot, crowded city. Power was out. Heat was rising. The girl had one working battery. Instead of using it for herself, she plugged it into her neighbor's oxygen machine, a neighbor she barely knew. The girl sat in the dark, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard, while the machine hummed softly. Zintra's gills fluttered. On Glorva, resources were shared only within family pods. Helping outsiders was rare. Wasteful, some would say. But this girl gave her last bit of power to keep a stranger alive. Rovak watched a funeral. Not a grand ceremony, but a simple gathering in a park. People stood in silence. Some cried. Others held each other. None of them were related to the person who had died. They were just there, because someone mattered, even if they didn't know them. For the first time in his life, Rovak felt something his species had long forgotten: awe. The three students sat in silence for a long time. The laughter from the cafeteria felt like it belonged to someone else, someone foolish, blind, and small. Dr. Vance hadn't defended Earth with weapons or words. She had shown them truth, and truth they were beginning to see was far more powerful than any joke. Cale couldn't sleep. The images from the footage kept playing in his mind like a loop he couldn't stop. The burning city, the flooded village, the doctor holding a stranger's hand. He had seen pain before. His own people endured long, silent trials in their crystal caves. But never like this. Never with so much noise, so much feeling, and yet so much care. He messaged Zintra just before dawn. Meet me in the observation deck. She came, her blue-green skin dull with exhaustion. Rovak was already there, standing by the curved window, staring out at the stars. None of them spoke at first. They just watched the slow spin of Zeta Prime's ring, silver and cold. Did you watch more? Cale finally asked. Zintra nodded. I saw a clip from a place called Jakarta. A girl, no older than us, gave her last battery to power a neighbor's oxygen machine. She sat in the dark for hours, alone, sweating, but she didn't complain. Rovak turned. His voice modulator was softer now. I saw a school in a war zone. The building was half destroyed. But every morning, children walked through rubble to sit on broken chairs and learn math. Their teacher had no books. She wrote equations in the dirt with a stick. Cale swallowed. I saw firefighters run into a burning building, not once, but 3 times to save pets. Not people. Animals. They came out coughing, covered in ash, holding a cat and 2 dogs like they were treasure. They fell silent again, the weight of what they'd seen pressed down on them, heavier than gravity. We were wrong, Zintra whispered. Not just wrong, Cale said. Cruel. Rovak looked at his hands. My people believe emotion clouds judgment. We removed it from public life thousands of cycles ago. We thought that made us wise, but these humans feel everything and still choose kindness. That is not weakness. That is strength we do not understand. Zintra sat down on the floor, hugging her knees. On Glorva, if someone is weak, they are left behind. It is the way of the deep currents, only the strong survive. But humans, they carry the weak. They build ramps for those who cannot walk. They share food when they have little. They cry for people they've never met. Kyle paced slowly. We called them chaotic. But maybe their chaos is just life, raw, messy, real life. And maybe that's what makes them brave. They talked for hours. Not as students from great civilizations, but as young beings who had just realized how small their view of the universe really was. They shared more clips they'd watched, each one chipping away at the wall of judgment they'd built. One showed a man in a snowstorm walking miles to bring medicine to a sick child in a remote village. Another showed volunteers planting trees in a desert, knowing they would never see them grow. There was a clip of a woman singing to a crying baby on a broken bus just to calm it down. No reward, no audience. Just a human being doing what felt right. What do we do now? Zintra asked. Kale stopped pacing. We tell the truth. But no one will believe us, Rovak said. They'll say the footage is fake. Or edited. Then we show them, Kale said firmly. We invite everyone to watch it. Not as a defense of humans, but as a lesson for all of us. Zintra nodded slowly. Maybe Earth doesn't need to be perfect to belong. Maybe they just need to be seen. That afternoon they gathered in the main learning hall, a wide, open space where students often debated ideas under floating star maps. Kale stood on a low platform. Zintra and Rovak stood beside him. A small crowd gathered, curious. We made a mistake, Kale began, his voice clear. We laughed at Earth without knowing them. Murmurs rose. Some students looked confused. Others rolled their eyes. We thought humans were weak because they feel too much, Zintra added. But feeling is not weakness. It is courage, Rovak stepped forward. We watched footage from Earth, real moments, not stories. And we saw something rare in the galaxy. Beings who suffer and still choose to help. Who lose everything and still share what little they have. He tapped his datapad. The hollow screen lit up. Without warning, he played a short clip, the one of the Jakarta girl giving away her battery. The room fell silent. When it ended, no one laughed. No one spoke. A few students looked down. Others stared at the screen, stunned. Watch the full file, Kyle said. It's in the archive. Title, Project Terra. Don't watch it to judge. Watch it to understand. Over the next 2 days, something changed in the academy. Students who once mocked Earth now sat quietly in corners watching the footage. Some cried. Others sat in silence for hours after. A group of avian students organized a discussion circle. A Zillion scholar, who had once refused to shake a human's hand, wrote a long note of apology, even though no human was there to read it. The ridicule stopped, not because someone forced it to, but because truth had walked in, quiet and unshaken, and shown them a different story. Kale, Zintra, and Rovak met again in the observation deck that night. The stars seemed brighter now. We can't undo what we said, Zintra said softly. No, Kyle agreed, but we can help fix it. Rovak looked at Earth's tiny blue dot in the distance. They didn't ask for our praise. They just asked to be seen. And for the first time, the students of the Interstellar Academy truly saw them. Not as chaotic children, but as fellow travelers in a hard, beautiful universe, doing their best with what they had. The footage had done more than show humans. It had shown the aliens something about themselves. That judgment is easy. But understanding takes courage, and courage, they were learning, was not about having no fear. It was about choosing kindness anyway, even when you've been wrong. The days after the footage spread were quiet in a new way. The laughter about Earth had stopped. In its place was something softer, thoughtful silence, shared glances, and long conversations in the halls. Students who once rolled their eyes at the mention of humans now asked questions. What do they eat? How do they say peace in their languages? Why do they cry at happy moments? Kale, Zintra, and Rovak met every evening in the old council chamber. They no longer sat as critics. They sat as students, humbled, curious, and changed. One night, Zintra brought a small shell from her homeworld. She placed it on the table. On Glorva, she said, this shell is given only to those who show true empathy. I never thought I'd give it to a human, but I want to offer it to Dr. Vance. Kyle nodded. My people believe wisdom comes from stillness. But humans find wisdom in action, in helping, in risking, in trying again after failing. That's a kind of stillness too. The stillness of the heart that chooses good even in chaos. Rovak was quiet for a long time. Then he said, my species removed strong emotions to keep peace. But watching humans, I wonder if we remove too much. Maybe peace without compassion is just empty space. They looked at each other. A decision was forming, not just in words, but in feeling. We need to do more than feel sorry, Kale said. We need to act. Zintra leaned forward. The Academy Council meets tomorrow. We should ask them to lift Earth's self-ban. But will they listen? Rovak asked. They will if we speak with truth, Kale replied. And if we show them why Earth belongs here, not despite their flaws, but because of how they face them. The next morning, the 3 students stood before the full Academy Council, a group of elders and professors from a dozen worlds. The room was tall and quiet, lit by soft beams of light that shifted with the mood of the speakers. Kale stepped forward first. We came here thinking we were wise, he began. We judged Earth without knowing them. We called them chaotic, emotional, unfit, but we were wrong, he paused. Chaos is not the same as cruelty. Emotion is not the same as weakness. Humans feel deeply, yes, but they use that feeling to care for others, even strangers. Even enemies, Sintra spoke next. On my world, we believe survival is earned. But humans believe survival is shared. They feed the hungry even when they are hungry themselves. They heal the sick even when they are tired. That is not foolishness. That is a different kind of strength. Then Rovak stepped up. His voice modulator was calm, but his silver eyes burned with something new. Respect. My people value logic above all, but logic without heart leads to cold choices. Humans choose with both heart and mind. They make mistakes, yes, but they learn. They apologize. They try again. That is the mark of a species ready for the galaxy. He looked at the head elder, a tall being with bark-like skin from the forest world of Ilthar. The Galactic Concord says no species shall be judged by its worst moments but by its highest aspirations. Earth's worst moments are known, but their highest moments, those we ignored. He tapped his data pad. On the wall, a short clip played, a group of humans forming a human chain to rescue flood victims, passing children hand to hand through rushing water. No orders, no rewards, just people helping people. The room was silent. Then the elder from Ilthar spoke. You ask us to lift the ban. Why now? Because Earth didn't hide their truth, Kale said. They showed it, even the hard parts, and they chose to step back to protect peace. That is not weakness. That is honor. Zintra added, and because we, the students, have learned something important, that understanding is not about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow, Rovak finished. Let Earth return. Not as a lesson in what not to be, but as a reminder of what we all can become. Beings who feel, who fail, and who still choose kindness. The council members looked at each other. Some nodded slowly. Others closed their eyes in thought. The decision would not be made quickly, but the seed had been planted. Later that day, the 3 students gathered in the observation deck again. The stars seemed closer now, as if listening. What if they say no? Zintra asked quietly. Then we keep speaking, Kyle said. Truth doesn't disappear just because someone refuses to see it. Rovak looked at Earth's distant blue dot. Even if Earth never returns, we have changed, and that matters. But the next morning, a message came. The Academy Council had voted unanimously. The self-ban on Earth's delegation was lifted. Earth was invited back, not as observers but as full participants in the next term. The news spread fast. Students cheered. Some cried. Others stood in quiet awe. Kale, Zintra, and Rovak walked to Dr. Vance's office. They found her sorting data files, as always. We did it, Kale said simply. Dr. Vance looked up. Her eyes were tired but warm. Did you? You showed us the truth, Zintra said. We just had the courage to see it. Rovak stepped forward and placed a small silver disc in her hand, a Mirathi token of deep respect. You did not defend your people with anger, he said. You trusted us to see for ourselves. That was the bravest thing of all. Dr. Vance smiled, a real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. Then maybe, she said softly, we're all ready to learn from each other. And in that moment, the Academy felt less like a school and more like a home, where even the most broken judgments could be healed by a single act of honesty and a little courage to press play. The day Earth's delegation returned to the Interstellar Academy was calm and clear. The rings of Zeta Prime glowed gold in the morning light, and the air inside the main arrival hall hummed with quiet energy. Students from every corner of the galaxy gathered, not to watch but to welcome. At the center of it all stood Kale, Zintra, and Rovak. They wore no special robes, no medals, just their usual academy uniforms. But they stood taller now, not with pride but with purpose. The shuttle from Earth docked with a soft hiss. The ramp lowered slowly. And then, one by one, the human delegates stepped out. There were 5 of them, 3 scientists, 1 teacher, and a young student named Mira, no older than the alien trio. She clutched a small bag and looked around with wide, nervous eyes. Dr. Alara Vance walked beside her, calm as always, but her hands trembled just slightly. A hush fell over the crowd. Kale stepped forward first. He did not speak. Instead, he bowed low, the deepest Varelian gesture of respect usually saved for elders or heroes. It was a bow that said, "I see you. I was wrong. I honor you." Sintra followed. From a pouch at her side, she took the glowing coral bloom she had carried for days. She held it out to Mira. On Glorva, this flower bloomed only once every 10 years, and it was given to someone who had shown great heart. Mira hesitated, then took it gently. The bloom pulsed with soft blue light in her palm. Rovak stepped last. He looked at Dr. Vance, then at the young human girl, and activated his voice modulator. But this time he did not speak with words alone. He reached out with his mind, not to read but to share. A single thought, clear and warm, passed into the minds of everyone nearby. We were wrong. It was not a plea. It was a promise. Mira blinked, tears welling in her eyes. She had heard the rumors about the jokes, the laughter, the ban. She had expected cold stares. Instead, she found open hands. Dr. Vance walked up to the 3 students. She did not say thank you. She simply placed a hand on each of their shoulders one by one. A human gesture, simple, deep, full of meaning. The crowd began to move, not away, but closer. A Zillion student offered a woven band to one of the human scientists. An avian delegate bowed her feathered head. A group of insectoid Qatari, once nearly at war with Earth over a handshake, stepped forward and extended their front limbs in the human way. This time they knew what it meant. Inside the grand hall, the humans were shown to their seats. Not at the back, not in a corner, but right in the center among peers from 100 worlds. The Academy's motto glowed softly on the far wall. Understanding begins where judgment ends. Later that day, during the welcome ceremony, the head elder of the council stood before everyone. "Today," she said, her voice like wind through ancient trees, "we do not just welcome Earth back. We welcome a new way of seeing. For too long, we measured wisdom by silence, logic, and control. But Earth has shown us that wisdom also lives in courage, in care, and in the choice to help, even when it costs you." She looked at the humans. "You did not demand a seat at this table. You earned it by showing your truth, your pain, your mistakes, and your light. That is the bravest kind of honesty." After the ceremony, Mira sat with Kale, Zintra, and Rovak in the garden dome, a place filled with plants from 100 worlds. She held the glowing bloom in her lap. "Why did you change your minds?" she asked softly. Kyle looked at the stars through the glass roof. "Because we saw you," he said. "Not as a story, not as a joke, but as real people. And real people are never just one thing." Zintra smiled. "You gave your last battery to a stranger. You ran into fire for a cat. You cried for people you never met. That's not chaos. That's love." Rovak added, "And love is the oldest language in the universe. We just forgot how to speak it." Mira smiled back. "We're not perfect," she said. "No one is," Kale replied. "But maybe that's why we need each other." Over the next week, something new grew in the Academy. Humans and aliens ate together. They studied together. They shared stories late into the night. A human taught a Varelian how to laugh out loud. A Glorvan showed a human how to breathe underwater using a special mask. Rovak and Mira sat in silence for hours, not speaking, just being, learning that peace can live in quiet company. Dr. Vance watched it all from a distance, her heart full. She had not come to prove Earth was great. She had come to show that Earth was trying, and sometimes trying is enough. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the Academy, Kale, Zintra, Rovak, and Mira stood together on the observation deck. Below them, the lights of the Academy twinkled like a new constellation. "We used to think the galaxy needed perfect beings," Kyle said. "But it doesn't," Zintra said. "It needs kind ones. Rovak looked at Earth, now a bright point in the sky. And kindness, he said, is not weak. It is the strongest force of all. Mira held up her coral bloom. It glowed brighter as if it agreed. And in that moment, under the endless stars, 4 young beings from different worlds stood together, not as aliens and humans, but as friends, as students, as proof that even the deepest judgments can be undone by a single act of truth, a little courage, and the willingness to see someone as they really are. The galaxy was vast, strange, and full of dangers. But here, in this quiet corner of space, something new had begun, understanding. And it started with a video file, and the choice to press play.